So yesterday we left off on M. If h of x equals blah, then for what values of x is h of x equal to g of f of 1? So we need to start with this g of f of 1. And we do that by looking at that picture, those graphs up there. So tell me, Jenna, what's f of 1? F of 1 is 0, yes. And if you weren't sure, let's go back up there real quick. F of 1 is right here. And that is, the y value for that is 0. Then we find g of 0. Shelby, what's g of 0? 2. Yes. Again, if we look over here, g of 0 is right there, and the y value for that is at 2. So that is equal to 2. So that means we take x squared minus x equals 2. How do we solve that?
Do you do like you have to get that x on the other side,
and then what?
Divide by 2 or x.
No, because it's got an x squared and an x. Would you do what, Justin? Yeah. Yeah. If you have, and this happens a lot every year. If you have an x squared and an x, you factor. X squared and an x, you factor, or use quadratic formula. So I have to set it equal to 0. So that's why we subtracted 2 from both sides. And I don't have to do the long no-fuss method because I don't have a number in front of the x squared. I need two numbers that multiply to give me -2, but that add to give me -1. -2 and +1. I just put x's in the other spot. Let's double check it. -2 times 1 is -2. -2 plus 1 is -1. So yeah, it's working. Now what? Yep, set those equal to 0. So you get x equals 2 and x equals -1. Those are your answers. Now, anytime you have an x squared or whatever variable squared and that variable again, you have to factor. You want to set it equal to 0 and either factor, or if it's not factorable, that's when you use that quadratic formula, x equals -b plus 2 minus the square root of that thing. And we wrote it down in here once. If we have to use it again, we'll write it down again, I'm sure. All right. Now we're going to move on to probably what you are more familiar with from algebra and probably didn't like as much, is the equations. So these start off the same like we did on the other one. We start on the inside. We would find h of 4 first. So to find h of 4, oops, that should be a 4. That means I would plug 4 into my h equation because it's h of 4. That's 3/2 times 4 minus 2. Practice multiplying by fractions. You can put this over 1, multiply straight across. Top times top, bottom times bottom. And then reduce. Or you can, right at the beginning, you can cross cancel. 2 goes into 2 once, 2 goes into 4 twice. But either way, when you multiply those, you end up with 6 minus 2 still. I brought down the minus 2. If you had done it the long way, it'd be 3 times 4, which is 12, and then divided by 2 times 1, which is 2. So you get the same thing either way. And then, of course, 6 minus 2 is 4. It's a coincidence that it's the same as what the number we plugged in. It's just a coincidence. Now, what do we do with that 4? Yes. You plug that 4 into the G. So we're going to find G of 4. So that 4 is plugging in right there. And we plug it into that yellow equation up there, 1 minus 2 times 4. That's 1 minus 8. So your answer is negative 7. You try number 3. Number 3 is very similar. And we'll do number 2. Holler at me if you get stuck. I can come help.
Teachers and students, for interruption. Students, an email has been sent to you by Ms. Williams from the library concerning voting for homecoming royalty. That email and voting site will be open from 10 o'clock today until 10 o'clock tomorrow. Once you've voted once, it will be closed and locked and you won't be able to re-enter. So put some thought into your vote. Thank you very much.
Okay, Donna, what would I do first? Yes, the G, is that what you said? And what would I plug in for X on G? What number do I plug in? Yes, because it's G of negative 1, I would plug negative 1 in for X. So 1 minus 2 times negative 1. Got to do the multiplication before you can add and subtract. So it's really 1 plus 2, because negative 2 times negative 1 is positive. So that's 3. Kendrick, now what?
Plug in 3 to P.
Yes. Now we're going to find P of 3. So we're taking this 3 and we're going to plug it in for the one on the outside here, P. So that's 3 plus 2, because we're using this equation, over 3 minus 3. You end up with 5 over 0. So what is that? Good. If 0 is under the line, it's undefined.
Is that like the 0?
It's not like a 0. It's just undefined.
I meant with like the line through it. Like
Oh, no solution, no. Undefined is different. Good question. Yeah, no, that's a little bit different. Undefined specifically for this means 0 under the line. Undefined. I guess technically there would be no solution, but I would be looking for undefined there. Becca, yes. Okay, so on number 2, we're doing the same thing, only it's not a composition of functions. We're just adding 2. So we just need to find them separately and then add our 2 answers. So we just find f of negative 2. So we plug that into x. So you got to be careful here. You got to do negative 2 squared, which is positive 4, but then there's a negative in front of it, so it's still negative. And then minus 6 minus 5. So that's negative 15. And that is not what that looks like. There we go. Then P of 2, we plug it into that fraction, the rational equation there. That's 2 plus 2 over 2 minus 3. 4 over negative 1, which remember a fraction is just another way of saying division. So that's just negative 4. And what's our last thing to do? Yeah, because it says plus here, we just add those two together. So that's negative 15 plus negative 4, and you get negative 19. Oops. Good deal. So on the next one, we've changed the equations. We've got a new f of x and a g of x. But now we're not plugging in